Okay, now we are on module 4, and this will be very quick as we're not going to do much computations here. So we are just meant to um, analyze the given problem statement and then try to understand what's going on. Okay, we're actually talking about single factor and multi-factor experiments. For example, the first one says a telecom company is studying the effects of RF exposure on workers' cognitive function and body temperature. And the workers are randomly assigned to different RF exposure levels in a controlled environment, meaning there will be an experiment to be conducted. And their reaction and time body temperature are also recorded. Okay, so we are asked with these questions or instructions. First one, we are asked to identify the independent variable and dependent variables in this experiment. We also have to name two control variables that should remain constant. When we say control variables, these are things that must be common in two groups that we are experimenting on, and they should remain constant or the same within the two groups. We also have we are asked also to identify the treatment group and the control group. So that's the group that I'm talking about. Okay, meaning the control variables must be the same for these two groups, right? Next, we are asked to explain why random assignment is important and suggest one way to ensure worker safety during the experiment. Meaning, letter E is only possible once we have the results or once we have our findings with this experiment, or maybe at least the initial findings. All right. So for letter A, independent and dependent variables, right? So okay. So the independent variables, the RF exposure level, because as said in the problem, we are um, looking at the effects of the RF exposure. So when we say the effects, meaning RF is affecting something. So the one that affects is RF, meaning the one that causes the dependent variable to change is the independent variable. So the RF exposure, whether low, medium, or high, um, that's for example. Okay, that's for meaning if we are going to conduct this test, we can start with a low RF exposure, a medium, and a high. So we have three groups. We can start with three groups of samples. Okay. Um, Next, we have the dependent variables would be the cognitive function. Okay, so we're going to have one as analysis regarding the cognitive function, and the other one regarding the body temperature. So this time we are actually having two types. I mean two sets of outputs. Okay, one set for the cognitive function and another set for the body temperature. Okay, now about the control variables. So these are just examples. Okay, first control variable could be the ambient room temperature. We have to prevent, all right, we have prevent external heat from affecting body temperature, meaning whatever is the reference temperature that we have in the room, it should be maintained at all times within the experiment. Okay, so for all participants, that all participants must experience the same room temperature. Okay, in both groups, right? So that there will be no bias in our measurements. Another is work duration. Since we are talking about people at work here, so they are exposed on RF radiation. So exposure is also determined by duration of exposure, duration of work. Okay, so people or workers that have been exposed for too long might have um, more consequences or might experience worse compared to those with shorter exposure period. Okay, so that's why during the test they have the both groups, both independent and control groups must have the same work duration. Okay, all workers should be exposed for the same amount of time, whether they are workers belonging to the treatment group or workers belonging to the control group. So by the way, it is us who assign which one is the treatment group and which one is the control group. We normally have random assignment. We don't intentionally select workers to belong to either of the groups. Okay, we just randomly assign them. We can shuffle their names. We can have draw lots, uh, okay, or whatever, as long as you don't intentionally choose a group for each worker. Okay, so we randomly assign them to these two groups. And the treatment group could be the workers exposed to varying levels of radiation, while the control groups will be exposed to the same level. Okay, there's no varying. We just stick to the baseline, or usually that could be the minimal or the zero RF level for comparison. So we're going to compare the ones with minimal exposure and the ones with different levels of radiation, which are the low, medium, and high. Okay, so I guess for control group, we just settled for the low exposure. Okay, while for the treatment group, we have three. We're going to vary the exposure. Okay. And now regarding the question about random assignment, note that random assignment ensures that personal differences such as prior health conditions, stress levels, or sleep quality are evenly distributed between groups. So it's not nice to intentionally put the ones with some prior health conditions in one group and the healthy ones on the other group. Okay, so that's not good. Or since you know which ones are more stressed, you intentionally put them in one group. Okay, so that's not also a good idea. Okay, we should, but if you know them, then you divide them. All those with prior health conditions, you divide them into two. All the stressed individuals or workers, you divide them into two also. But when you select randomly. Okay, this will reduce bias and increase the reliability of our results. Now, as a suggestion, based on this, assuming you conducted the test already, so possible um, um, suggestion for this to improve the safety among workers, the engineers, or whoever is in charge on the safety of the workers could integrate real-time monitoring of worker vitals and establish emergency stop protocols if any worker experiences abnormal health effects. So, for within the context of ECE, one thing that we can do is to make use of some wearable sensor device that can detect the heart condition, the BP, and other vital signs. Okay, and whenever the data that we get will be incorporated into an app that will determine whether the vitals are normal or not. Okay, and whenever the vitals are detected to be beyond normal, then there will be a trigger that will um, lead to emergency stop. Okay, emergency stoppage of the operation because there's something wrong with one or more of the workers. Right, so that could be uh, practical or tangible output of this simple research that we have. Okay. which is dependent on our experiment. Okay, by the way, we are talking about research, and if you have noticed, our examples are mostly focused on those that can be applied to our research. Okay, so that's for the first example. Second one, you have to evaluate the effectiveness. All right, let's have this until here. All right. So to evaluate the effectiveness of an automated lighting system in large commercial buildings, a study in a city with 500 commercial buildings is conducted to test how different power backup configurations, such as the battery capacity and type, affect the duration and brightness of emergency lighting during a power outage. To ensure accurate results, tests are conducted in a controlled environment, meaning we're going to have an experiment with randomized building sections assigned to different configurations. And proper instruments measure brightness levels and ethical considerations ensure occupant safety during trials. And the study conducted aims for 95% confidence level, and we assume 50% variability and 5% margin of error. So we are asked to clearly define the research objective of the study, identify the variables, name control variables that should remain constant, and explore or explain the role of random assignment. Although this one is already given, just like the previous one. We are also asked what data collection instruments might be used to measure the dependent variables, and we are asked for the sample size because that's one of the requirements when we are about or when we are planning to conduct an experiment. We should determine how many people should serve as respondents in our experiment. Okay, and then by the way, since we have human respondents, then or human specimen in our experiment, then which one? We are assuming we not just assume we have to make sure we are considering and abiding to ethical considerations. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that, but just remember, whenever there are human participants um in our experiment, then we have to consider the ethical aspect, right? Okay. In other words, we have to make sure it our experiment is humane. Okay. And solution, search objective could be as simple as this one. We want to evaluate how different battery capacities and types affect the duration and brightness of emergency building lighting during a power outage in buildings. And out of that research objective, we can now determine our variables, our independent and dependent variables. So as you can see, the ones affecting the other thing is or are the battery configurations or the battery capacities and types. Okay, and the one that is being affected is the duration and brightness of emergency lighting, right? So battery type and capacity, those are our independent variables. And our dependent variables, um, we have duration and the brightness. Okay, so if we compare with the previous example, in the previous example we are considering one independent variable only as a possible factor. Okay, so this means it is a single factor experiment. While this one we are considering multiple um, multiple factor, specifically a two-factor experiment. Okay, so now, regarding the control structures, to make sure we are having an accurate experiment, we make sure that the type of light fixtures, or the lighting that we have in our controlled environment are fixed. Okay, they have to be consistent in terms of brightness, and then uh, the duration of power outages simulated must be the same for the entire experiment. Okay, for both groups. This ensures all setups experience the same test conditions. Okay. Now, same thing with the previous example, the role of random assignment, it minimizes bias and other external factors do not influence the results. Okay, so we randomly assign the different um, okay. Sorry. In this case, we don't have human specimens. We only have buildings, right? 500 commercial buildings, right? So now we are also asked what data instruments. So data instruments could be, right, could involve a lux meter because we want to measure the brightness lumens. So any measurement device that we use in our data gathering are actually data collection instruments, right? Timer for the duration. Okay. Now, lastly, we are asked for the sample size. We use the Cochrane formula for finite population. So using this formula, we given the P and the Z. So okay, the Z will be our critical value for the 95% confidence level. So 95% confidence level in Z corresponds to 1.96 critical value. That's why that's the default value of Z here. So 1.96. And then the P is our proportional wait lang. All right. The P is our variability and uh, okay. And the E is our margin of error, 0.05. Okay, so we have the variability of zero point 0.5 and then the 1 minus zero point 0.5 is this one, right? And then we have the E. So substitute. We basically substitute. And if you compute that, we have come up with this number, round up. So we round up whatever the computed value. And in this case, it's 385. But out of 500, if you test 385, that would be too much. So, good thing we know the population is finite. It's only 500. So we can make use of the continuation of this formula. This is for further reducing the sample size required. So we have NO as our computed sample size, and then we have the capital N as a finite population. Okay, so substitute, and then we have come up with 218 buildings only instead of 385. Okay, so we can only do this, we can only reduce the required sample size if we know the population size, and which is finite. Okay, but if we are considering an infinite population, then we can end up with this one only. Okay, so you can read the ethical considerations like um, if there are tenants or occupants in the buildings, we should not cause unnecessary power disruptions and especially if they involve unsafe lighting conditions like flashing, rapid flashing of lights, which could be a hazard to some workers in the buildings that we experiment on. Okay, so these are just some of the ethical considerations, especially the buildings. Although we are experimenting on buildings, we have to realize that there are people inside the buildings while we are doing the experiments. Okay, so another thing we should have the consent of those people, especially the management. Okay, so that's for the second example. And let's have the third example, which is quite um complex. All right. So we have this one. Researchers in a robotics lab test the accuracy of an AI-powered robotic arm designed for precision assembly tasks. And the goal is to compare the positioning error in millimeters under two conditions. We have the standard AI, and this one should be okay, let me correct this. this one should be enhanced AI model. So enhanced standard and enhanced AI model. And we have a total of 30 trials conducted for each model. So 30 for the standard and 30 for the enhanced, right? And measuring the absolute positioning, difference between the intended and actual. And for that given data set, we are asked to conduct descriptive statistics and create a box plot to compare the positioning error of both models. So that's, I believe you know already, we just take the mean of these, we take the standard deviation of each, and that's it. We have the descriptive stat. Um, Backsplat, okay, I'm going to explain in a while. And then we are asked, based on the results, discuss whether the enhanced AI model significantly reduces positioning error compared to the standard AI model. So in this case, we can use a t-test or a z-test, but ideally this should be a paired t-test. Okay, so um, okay, for me, either z-test or paired t-test. The easier one is z-test, actually. So I don't have the results here, but I didn't perform z-test or pair t-test, but I derived the answer from our box plot. Okay, so this is an alternative to hypothesis testing. Um, Right. Now, if we do the descriptive stat, specifically we take the mean, the median, standard deviation, range, and IQR, like what we had in the module one examples. Okay, same process. So this will be the values. Okay, and knowing the IQR, we can now derive the box plot. Okay, so we have here the Q1 or I mean the Q1, Q2, and Q3. And then this is 1.5 Q1 minus 1.5 of the median. Okay. Q1 minus 1.5 of the median. Q3 uh, plus 1.5 of the median. Okay, so when we do outlier, we are looking for outliers or check whether there are outliers. For example, for this one, for the standard AI model, if there are no dots or sorry, if there are no numbers, values beyond these two limits, okay, these are called the whiskers of our box and whisker plot. Box plot is also known as box and whisker plot. So if there are no values beyond the whiskers, either below the lower whisker and above the upper whisker, then we don't have outliers. Okay? Outliers are the ones exceeding these limits. Okay, so in this case, we don't have outliers. And then if we are asked if there's a clear improvement, as you can see, there is, because we are measuring errors, by the way, and we want the errors to be as small as possible. Okay, so from this much, okay, this is the median 3.0 for before. During the standard AI model, in the standard AI model, we have this median of errors, while for the enhanced, we only have uh around 1.7, I guess. Okay. So the median would be, all right, we actually have the median here, 3 and 1.6. So it's around 1.6, right? So um no, significantly the boxes do not overlap and the medians are very far apart from each other. So right at this point we can now okay, just in case you don't notice, there's no overlapping between the two boxes. So this clearly shows that there has been a significant difference between the two models. Okay? And I believe whether you conduct a z-test or a paired t-test, the result will be the same or similar. Okay? It will only say that there has been a significant difference between the two. All right. So that is basically how um we conduct a test and then come up with certain uh conclusions. Right? So by the way, if we're going to ask, if we're asked, what will be the, okay, I guess that will be it. It has been too long already. So that will be all. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again in the next part. Okay, this is the end of module 4, by the way. So we're going to start module 5 in the next video. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.